you a foolproof method for adding structure to your blues solos. We'll go over a few basic licks to get you started, and then I'll show you how to tie those licks together to create meaningful solos. My name is Jack Roosh. Welcome to my channel. Let's get into it. One of the problems that a lot of guitar players have, and I know this from my own firsthand experience, is difficulty with structuring solos to create cohesive statements. You may have a large vocabulary of licks and a solid grasp on scales and arpeggios, but then struggle when it comes to fitting all those pieces together to create meaningful and cohesive musical statements. So in today's lesson, we're not going to talk about any music theory or any types of scales. We're just going to talk about structuring solos, creating motifs, and some basic phrasing concepts. In this first example, I'll play over a 12-bar blues in the key of C, using kind of a basic method for giving your solos structure. I'll play it down and then we'll break it down. This solo is over a 12-bar blues form. Now when I'm playing a 12-bar blues, I like to break it down into 2-bar chunks. And over the first 2 bars, we're going to establish a motif. Now a motif is kind of like a theme that can repeat throughout the solo to give it some structure. Now this particular motif is kind of a call and response idea, where I'm coming up one lick and then coming down with another lick. Right, so the whole idea with this type of motif style playing is to make a decision and then commit to that decision and play with intent, right? We don't want to be just randomly and aimlessly kind of tying blues licks together or just sort of meandering through a scale pattern. We really want to make up our mind about what we want to say and then say it in a cohesive statement, right? So now that we've sort of established a motif over the first 2 bars, we can repeat that over the next 2 bars. And that will set us up going into our first major chord change where we go to the 4 chord. Right? Now, when we go to the 4 chord, this is where we're going to kind of break away from the motif a little bit because we want to address the chord change and play something that outlines this new chord, or at least kind of acknowledges that a chord change has happened. So in this case, I'm playing this phrase kind of out of the minor pentatonic scale, right, where I'm really leaning on this E flat note, which is right out of this F7 chord, right? And because, I want to kind of establish some consistency in my playing, I'm going to play that lick and then repeat it. So, right again, so I'm not just kind of meandering through the chord tones of an F7 chord or a minor pentatonic scale, but I'm really making a decision about what I want to play and committing to that decision. Now, as we go back to the 1 chord, we can return back to our original theme. Right, and that sets us up to move to the final part of the progression where we go to the 5 chord, down to the 4 chord, and then into our turnaround section. Now, because this lesson isn't really about outlining chord changes or playing chord tones or anything like that, it's really more about just structuring solos. I chose not to play something outside, inside of these chords, but rather just kind of play a sort of basic pentatonic phrase that sort of acts as like a tag to this solo. So, right, so that's just sort of wrapping up this whole series of licks that we've played, right? Where we've established a motif, repeated that motif, then veered off from that to address the chord change, then came back to that, and then we're just sort of wrapping it up with this nice tag. Now, once you get this together, this basic kind of formula, you can really start to build on it by adding more notes and embellishments to create some really interesting, cool solos. So in this next example, I'll play basically the same solo, but add a little bit more to it, give it a little bit more flavor, and you can hear how that sounds. This is basically the same solo as the first two examples, but just changing it up a little bit more. And you can see how by taking a very basic solo and a very basic formula for structuring the solo, we can really develop it into something really cool. Will be available up on my Patreon page. That's a great way to support this channel if you haven't signed up already. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.